Hey there YouTube, this is SGM4306 and back with another exciting episode of TeardownTube. Yeah, it's the Thanksgiving morning here. For everyone who celebrates, happy Thanksgiving. If not, then, happy day. So yeah, I've been meaning to do this for quite a while. Wow, this is really dusty. I've alluded to before, I tore down the Xbox 360 controller. I had a user also wanted me to tear down this guy here, which is a PS3 Dualshock 3 controller. And so I will do exactly that right in front of you guys. So, pretty simple. Just 5 screws right along the back there. Standard Phillips ought to do it. Wrong size. Yeah, should have been better prepared. Where are all my bits? Okay, here we go. Okay. One of these has to fit. Nah. Or apparently none of these have to fit. What is this, like, too small? Okay. Already off to a good start. Jeez, what the heck? Keep grabbing the wrong size bits. I'll get her eventually. Yeah, I wonder if that one screw's kind of stripped. I wonder if someone's been in here. I bought the second hand. So hopefully... Yeah, I don't think I've ever opened this up before, but hopefully no one's been in here. Yeah, someone stripped out that screw. Damn it. I just had to be really careful when putting that back in. Just to be doubly safe, let's see if I can find a bit that... You gotta be careful with these things, because once you strip out a screw, it's pretty much gone. Yeah, this is kind of annoying. I'll make do with what I got. Yeah, just gotta be really careful because the idiot who took this apart before me didn't use the right size screw bit. So all these are at risk of stripping even more because they're already like 90% there. A good tip is if you have a screw that's like this, if you push kind of inwards with the screwdriver while slowly turning, as long as the head isn't entirely damaged on the screw, yeah, you can see, it's sort of, you can tell that someone's used the wrong size bit and just kind of jammed it in there, which is really irritating. And it looks like all of them, this is why, one of the reasons why I hate buying things that are opened up by amateurs, because they will screw things up when putting it back together and whatnot, which is really irritating. I mean, all it takes is a multi-driver bit set, and you don't have to waste time, screwing up the screws, so to speak. Okay, there we go. Finally, magnets. Okay, finally we're in, like Flynn, and okay, that's really irritating. Thank you. Stop that. Okay, good. So we're in here. So now I believe there's a clasp down here. So we should be able to get our fingernails in and start prying from the top. Yep. And then eventually it'll kind of pop open. Yeah, there's that plastic tab clasp thing. So we can sort of tilt it out from the front. The trigger buttons are going to stay in the body, and here's the back shell. Do not lose, there's a little piece of rubber, like a little button there. Come on. Focus. There we go. So there's a little piece of rubber that's for the reset button hole. Make sure you do not lose that. Keep that in there. So yeah, here's the controller itself. Here's the battery. It's just held in with a Molex connector, so you can get in there, pull that out, and yeah, this has been pinched. Great. So yeah, someone's been in here before for one reason or another. And the wires on this have been pinched because they didn't actually route it correctly. Great! Amateur work. Anyway, this guy is a 3.7 volt, 570 milliamp hour battery. User replaceable, of course. Yeah, I have another PSP and it has the same type of, not PSP, PS3 controller, not a Dualshock. I have, what they call it, 6-axis, the one without the rumble motors or anything. I have one of those, and it has the same battery. It looks pretty much the same from what I can see. So there's one screw here. Interesting, they use a membrane switch for the reset button. But yeah, let's pop this guy out. Oh, God. Just not my day. Okay. And that screw is actually the same as all the others, so that's fine. So yeah, so we have our motors. Everything's kind of on this one mid-frame assembly. So we should be able to kind of just pull this out, and the buttons will go everywhere, of course. So just set these aside so we don't lose them. And we can kind of pull the entire body out in one go. Set that aside for now. Here's the light pipe assembly for the player indicator number. And this guy just swings out, I believe. Tweezers would help. Yep. So you can just kind of pull this out. Not going to do that because it's kind of a pain to get in. You kind of have to like tilt it towards yourself, get some tweezers in there, and you can pull it out. All the face buttons and everything are just essentially rubber membranes, and then the actual cast button itself. Interesting that, so the 360 controller is cast in clear plastic, and then it has like the inner colored part. This one is actually, you can see it's a double cast as well. The inside of the button is whatever color that the button's supposed to be, and then there's the outside portion. So this isn't painted on, so this isn't going to scratch off. So kudos to Sony for kind of taking the extra step there. The buttons aren't going to mar that easily. And then, get in there. And all the buttons are keyed. Pretty much every controller does this now, so that they don't swivel around when they're in there. So essentially how this works is these little pads, they're like carbonized rubber essentially, so they're slightly conductive. And when you press a button, they essentially connect the pads you know, on this flexible film here, and the controller can actually sense it. I believe, I don't know if these are actually, because it looks like this is one continuous strip of carbonized film. So I think these are pressure sensitive actually. So when you press it, it can determine how hard you press the button itself. Interesting that they went with a membrane as opposed to the 360 controller where it's just everything on the same PCB. But this is actually pretty easy then to, you know, if you wanted to modify it or something like that. What are we stuck on? Oh yeah. So yeah, the motors unfortunately are hard soldered to the board, so I can't really take those off. But everything comes off. You can see the main board's actually pretty small, and everything's connected through by this ribbon connector to these pads on the actual circuit board itself, and there's barely anything on the circuit board. So we can kind of swing this out a bit. Yeah, so we have our USB port. Pretty much everything's in like a handful of chips, if that. Our wireless transceiver is here. It's just a card. It's an ALPS module. So it's one of those modules that it's an all-in-one, and probably some sort of serial interface to the main processor chip, and that's it. Likely there's going to be a motor driver. It's going to be one of these chips, maybe this chip or something like that. I can see some traces snaking down. Looks like some kind of memory device in there. We have a crystal, standard SN84001, some sort of probably buffer logic or something like that. Some glue logic in there. And let's see. Oh, I cannot read that. Connects. Not connects as in like Legos and connects, but KINEX, I believe. I can barely even read that. I'm gonna guess that. What is that doing? Oh, that's the accelerometer. Most likely than not, just because of the package shape and size and whatnot. That's what it looks like. We have our 4 LEDs here also. If you wanted to mod this to color change it, you can easily desolder those. No issue at all. And then finally on the back we have our main Toshiba processor. And this guy is a T6UN6EFG. Is there a date code on here? Maybe 50th week of 2008, looks like. So yeah, very simple construction and whatnot. Interesting, there's a unpopulated, looks like a package. There may be, oh, I see. Yeah, so manufacturers will often do this. So this is the accelerometer chip. Say they can't get any more stock of this chip. They have a backup plan. So on the back here is another common package for accelerometers. So if they get another chip in stock instead of the other one, they'll just solder this one in and don't put a chip on the other side. So yeah, very interesting. It looks pretty flexible, very small, lots of test points labeled. So yeah, pretty straightforward there. We have our dual analog sticks, which are just potentiometers, essentially, two for the X and the Y axis. These look pretty nice, actually. Interesting, they have like a separate wafer, and then they're heat staked in there. So you can kind of see that right by my finger there. And then you have the center click buttons. Yeah, there's really not much going on here. So we can kind of finagle this back, hopefully. Yeah, and the shoulder buttons are, interestingly enough, still on the same piece of plastic as the front buttons, but there's this extra rubber membrane here that when you press the button, it actually connects. And also the triggers are the same way, so you just press this and it presses the internal button there. Pretty neat. Looks like this would be really cheap to make. Uber cheap. There's really not much going on here. So let's get her back together. An interesting, yeah, there we go. Interesting method that they use for the rumble features. So they have these half-slotted weighted discs, and so the gentler rumble has just a single disc, which is quite a bit smaller, and the heavier one has 4 discs that are quite a bit larger, so that they can simulate different levels of intensity, essentially. So yeah, pretty simple. One thing, putting this back together, you want to make sure that the shoulder button's seated properly. It only goes in kind of one way, and you want to make sure that this L1 and R1 are the right side up, because I believe you can, yeah, they're symmetrical. You can put them in kind of back to front. So we can get that in, and there we go. So yeah, if you want to clean this, you can take a pocket knife. I'm not going to do this, but if you want to remove these the trigger buttons, you can kind of get in here and pry upwards. There's just like a little C-clip that connects on these 2 points here, so you can actually pull this entire button off. I'm not going to do that because I can risk breaking it. So yeah, single screw goes back in. Okay. Probably gonna just test this before I actually button her up. Interesting that they have this this like cage assembly for the battery, so that it kind of slots in there. So very interesting indeed. So we can just insert the battery there. there has to be a way that they route the these guys so that it doesn't catch. Just gonna kind of tuck the wires in. And there we go, that looks fine to me. So we're just gonna put the top back on. Kind of swing it over the front shoulder buttons, make sure that those are in there. Then we should be able to just give her a squeeze and she'll click right back together. And yeah, turn back on. So good, still works. And we're just gonna put these screws back in, albeit not too tightly because some idiot tried to open it with the wrong bit. I've seen horror stories of things I've gotten broken off eBay where someone's attempted to repair it before and have botched it up pretty good. I've seen like people try to solder to the main board and just like big splashes of solder shorting everything together. I don't even know how you could mess up that bad. I've seen water damage. I've seen coffee, like dried coffee, soda, all that nasty stuff in there. So yeah, the buttons feel good, and we're back together. And that is the completed teardown. I might eventually actually replace some of these LED colors. Might go for like a Super Famicom, you know, green, blue, red, yellow sort of thing going on. Just because it would look neat and it'd be easy enough to mod. Anywho, one of the things that I noticed was between this Dualshock 3 and the 6-axis controller that I have, the Dualshock controller is it's opaque. Well, the plastic isn't see-through at all; it's completely dark. But the 6-axis controller that I have, you can actually kind of see through the plastic. It's like semi-smoke gray translucent, which is pretty interesting. So I might actually try to swap the shells out because that controller has charging problems and also the sticks are heavily damaged and whatnot, but the shell's okay. I kind of like clear electronics better. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know why. I just sort of like being able to kind of see into the electronics and whatnot. And another mod that I might think of doing is putting an LED behind this home button here. That would be pretty cool, have that light up whenever the controller's on as well. So yeah, this is the DualShock 3 controller, and in comparison to the, let me get my 360 controller. So yeah, in comparison to the 360 controller, it's much, much smaller. It's a little bit trickier to get apart because it's fumbly with like the mid-frame assembly, the extra button membrane, like the plastic, instead of just having all the buttons on the main PCB, there's that separate plastic piece. The triggers are a separate piece, and it's a little bit fiddler to take apart, but it's actually quite a bit smaller. In terms of reliability, they're both pretty reliable. Definitely the battery life on the 360 controller is quite a bit better. I don't know when I changed the batteries in this last. This guy I have to charge, you know, once a week, something like that. But yeah, that brings me to, this is rechargeable out of the box. This guy just has AA batteries, but you can get a rechargeable battery pack. But I definitely much prefer having a standard USB connector instead of whatever the heck that is. So yeah, this is 2.4 gigahertz. This is standard Bluetooth. I've downloaded an application for Android, actually. It's like $2 or something that lets you use, on rooted devices, use DualShock 3 controllers. So I currently use this with my Android TV just to navigate the menus and stuff. And it's awesome. You can use a joystick to control like the mouse pointer, and it's really cool over using like a mouse and keyboard to control it. One complaint that I definitely have on the 360 controller, this D-pad sucks. I'm sorry. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm constantly, when I use this with my RetroPie, I'm constantly like ducking when I mean to press over because there's no like definitive distinction between any of the directions. It's just mushy and it feels horrible. This guy, separate distinct buttons. You can still like roll your finger to go diagonals and whatnot, but definitely much better. I have pretty small hands actually, so I much prefer kind of the shape and size of the PS3 controller to the 360, though it's not that uncomfortable, honestly. But yeah, all in all, two different controllers for two different systems, but I find, uses for each of them. Having native compatibility for the 360 controller and Steam is a godsend. I have installed Motion Joy for the PS3 controller to get it to work with my computer, and it works okay. There's much more latency because it's going through like a third-party controller or driver. So it's a little bit annoying. Some games I can't really play if it relies heavily on like reflexes or speed because of that latency gets in the way. But puzzle games and RPGs and whatnot, this works just fine on. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I wanted to get out there and say. So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying your Thanksgiving. This is my present to you guys, and if you have any questions, you can write down below. Like, comment, subscribe, do what you guys do. And I've put affiliate links and whatnot. I'd like to thank you guys again for that. I'm actually making a lot more, well, not a lot more, but more than I thought I would. I thought I'd make like pennies a month or something like that. But I'm actually making, enough to support buying more of, electronic devices to take apart and whatnot. So definitely those are going towards future videos, so you guys can look forward to the random junk, broken electronics junk that I buy for future teardowns and repairs. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I know I say a lot, and you guys are probably very annoyed. I'm not the most eloquent speaker, but yeah, I'm very thankful for you guys. So definitely, I wish I could give each and every one of you a thumbs up. So anyway, without getting too sappy before this gets done, I will see you guys in my next video. So happy Thanksgiving, and bye.